500 million rands that was supposed to be paid in 12 months is now after Scott, and profit targets were set to say that if you achieve X amount, you will earn zero, I think below 400 million rands, and above 610 million rands, you'd earn 100% of 500. So that was agreed. And the PIC team undertook to present the final terms of the transaction to the IC, which was scheduled to take place after the scheduled board meeting on 1 February 2019. Taking into account that the board meeting was scheduled to take place after the expiry of the long stop date, the PIC and the sellers agreed to extend the long stop date to 15 February 2019 in order to give the PIC and the law an opportunity to finalize the agreements after the approval of the funding agreements and placing that 500 million rands into an escrow account which was requested by the seller.
Now, what is important is what happened on the 30th of January. Can you just tell the Commission?
On 30 January 2019, one day before the scheduled long stop date, an anonymous email was sent from the account James Noko, leveling allegations of corrupt against the current beef transaction.
Those are the allegations also involving you?
That's correct. On 1 February 2019, the scheduled board meeting took place, and the entire board of the PIC resigned, and the scheduled IC meeting did not take place to deal with the proposed amendments to the current beef transaction. This came as a shock to all of us who had been involved in this transaction for close to 18 months at that point, but we remain hopeful that the transaction will be presented to the new board as soon as it is appointed.
Mr. Madam, can you mention the paragraphs as you go along so that we can follow?
Sorry, I'm on paragraph 40, Commissioner.
Paragraph 40, okay.
Yeah. I'm on the last sentence. As a result, the 11th single document had been signed, while funding documents had not been finalized, placing the transaction into a precarious position. I must just explain the process of signing the sale agreements and the so the sale and sale of shares and claims agreement and sale of business essentially captured the whole transaction, which was between PIC, the PE consortium, and the current family. But on the side, after signing a term sheet on the 10th of October, and then the sale agreements on the 22nd of October, it was made a condition precedent that before closure, the PIC and the PE would have concluded their funding agreements. And we basically went through, but this got delayed. During the month of February 2019, the PIC executive, I'm 41 now, the PIC executives decided to take a new approach with regard to the approval of the transaction. Firstly, they said that the deal should be discussed at PT2 again and to deal with the proposed amendments to the funding terms. PMC2 convened on 18 February.
Sorry to interrupt you. Was that necessary, as there was already an agreement?
The agreement containing the funding terms was signed on 10 October 2018 after a PMC meeting. PMC convened on 18 February and essentially reversed some of the decisions of the previous PMC2 regarding the management agreement without considering the justification of the law agree on why a pure debt structure is not suitable for this transaction. PMC also questioned the reasonableness of the proposed transaction fees of about 1.5% of the deal and requested that it be kept at 1%. This decision did not take into account any guideline as to what market standards are in relation to transactions of this nature and failed to take into account the complexity, duration of the mandate, the size of the teams in place, as well as other factors that were involved. PMC also deliberated that the call option that is exercisable in 3 years. So they also deliberated on that particular call option and approved it, despite the fact that this call option was already approved by a subcommittee of the board. Basically seeking to either reverse that decision or confirm it. We don't know for what reason. Essentially, they sought to deliberate on a decision of the board subcommittee with a view of endorsing or reversing it. They then rejected all the other enhancements contained in the term sheet approved by PIC2 on 10 October that aimed to model the transaction along private equity lines because there was no precedent for the type of structures in the previous PIC transactions. This decision was taken without taking into account why the transaction was structured in the manner it was. The correspondence from the PIC deal team dated 19 February 2019 regarding the outcome of PIC2 meeting is contained in the attached annexure KB6 here too. Below Agri responded to the PMC decisions in a letter dated 20 February 2019, and this letter is attached here too as annexure KB7. The PIC team agreed to schedule another PMC2 meeting and the investment committee meeting soon afterwards to discuss the proposals contained in the below Agri letter dated 20 February 2019. The PMC2 meeting took place on the 1st of March, and the committee took a resolution to recommend that confirmatory due diligence and updated valuation be undertaken, as 6 months had expired since the approval of the deal by the investment committee. At the time of the PMC2 meeting on 1 March, 6 months had expired a day before, and strong representations from below Agri contained in this letter dated 20 February 2019 were completely ignored. On 7 March, below Agri wrote another letter to the acting CEO of the PIC making representation why the 6-month rule cannot be applied in this case. Below continued to argue that all the delays in the transactions are attributable to the turmoil taking place within the PIC. These representations, as contained in the letter, are annexed here too as annexure KB8, were completely ignored by the IC during its meeting on 11 March 2019. And a decision was taken to perform a confirmatory due diligence and evaluation, as well as refer all the allegations contained in the James Noku email to the Social and Ethics Committee, despite the fact that the legal team had done and enhanced know your client procedures and compliance procedures in terms of figure around February 2019 and found that allegations of fronting to be baseless.
Was there indeed a FICA certificate issued?
They issued a FICA compliance certificate, and that's what the annex that was submitted to PMC2 as well as IC. IC approved the proposal by PMC. Social and Ethics Committee convened on 3 April and resolved not to make any pronouncements on the James Noku allegations because the PIC Commission of Inquiry is investigating those allegations. PIC deal team was authorized by IC to appoint consultants to perform due diligence and evaluation on 11 March 2019, but none of the service providers had been appointed. As said, I think 21 May, it's today, I think it's meant to say 11 May 2019, that is more than 2 months after approval.
Who's going to pay for this?
The PIC agreed to pay for this, and they ran their normal tender process. But 2 months later, these consultants have not started work, they've not been appointed. During a formal meeting with the seller, below Agri and the PIC team led by the acting CEO on 16 April 2019, the PIC team stated that it remains committed to the conclusion of the current beef transaction as per the original approval of the IC. However, the PIC team stated categorically that the team will not be in a position to implement the transaction until the PIC Commission of Inquiry finalizes its investigation of the James Noku allegations and provides a formal report to the PIC as requested by the PIC board during its meeting on the 1st of February 2019.
Thank you. You have a request to the Commission in paragraph 49 of your submission.
Sorry, can I just, for clarity purpose, when you say the PIC Commission of Inquiry, is that the PIC's own commission looking into that?
No, this commission, Commissioner.
This commission?
Yes.
But we're certainly not going to
this
submit
is not
a
what
report
we do
to the
PIC.
I thought it's the PIC team that
So,
you're talking about.
Commissioner, they said that the team will not be able to implement the transaction until this commission issues PIC with a report on the allegations contained in the James Noko email. As the PIC board of the 1st of February 2019 had requested. I found it odd, but I mean, that is a position from the PIC.
Can we ask you, Advocate Libet, to look into that? Because we're not aware of any request of that nature, and certainly it'd be totally inappropriate and outside our terms of reference completely.
Absolutely.
That's not what we are doing.
Absolutely, Mr. Commissioner. I must put on record that I've been approached a couple of times by a member of the board requesting whether there has been any result in the investigations, and the position is, at this stage, there is no definite answer to who Mr. Noku or Nogu is.
But that's not their business in relation. I mean, the board needs to do whatever it needs to do, but the terms of the commission, this commission, are very clear.
Correct.
And the report is to the President.
Correct.
It is not a response to help the PIC in relation to uncovering its
You're correct.
internal
Absolutely
affairs.
correct.
So perhaps can we just ensure that this matter is clarified, and if they wrote a letter to us on the 1st of February, perhaps we can get a copy and see what exactly they were dealing with so that we can find and respond appropriately to that.
We'll do that. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
I'm also quite surprised that this is a statement as to why the Karen Beef deal cannot. I think that if that's the case, we would need to look into that as well, because
I think that is the submission and request from the witness in his last paragraph.
Okay. Do I need to read it?
Yeah.
Okay. On the last paragraph, 49, as a result, this transaction has been placed in limbo. It's likely to derail the transaction despite the very positive outcomes that the transaction could have for the economy and transformation in the agricultural sector. Since this is a live transaction where the long stop date is currently 22 May 2019, I humbly request this commission, and I'm out of order, but I'm going to read it because I humbly request this commission to issue an interim report on its findings on the current beef transaction so that the deal can be finalized either way. The need for certainty in this transaction is particularly important as transaction costs continue to rise. We've been on this for 2 years in July. I think it's 2 years in July. And with what I've heard yesterday, it seems like we're going to be in for another long haul. But this is not really an efficient way of doing transactions.
It would seem to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the whole transaction was derailed by the Noku email.
That's correct, Commissioner.
Mr. Commissioner,
Yes, you see, even if we were able to issue an interim report on this specific matter, it would go to the President, not to anyone else, and it would be in the hands of the President to distribute it if he wants to.
That's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. We're going to deal now with a second transaction, and it has been dealt with in detail in the submission, but the purpose of this evidence is not to really explain the transaction, but to present evidence to the Commission of what is happening inside the PIC with certain transactions. And that is the purpose of the evidence. So, Mr. Matau, can I request you again, you can accept that the Commissioners have read the statement. Just start your evidence by briefly explaining the nature of this transaction, and then we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Commissioner. So this transaction was originated in 2015. Export Trading Group is one of the major companies in the agricultural sector on the continent, operated at that point in 26 African countries. They basically do trade in agricultural commodities and agricultural inputs, being fertilizer, seed, chemicals, basically supply those to the farms.
So sometimes in 2015, PIC developed a strategy to invest across the continent, what they call a Pan-African investment mandate, which was not really in place before. And in my discussions with some of the guys at the Land Bank about a fertilizer producer based in the Northwest, we basically came across the ETG team. And we were advised that, you know, this is a good company to buy because it's Pan-African, and if you have a relationship with them, you don't have to really come alone to Land Bank and buy profit. You can essentially buy this entity in collaboration with ETG, which I approached for understanding whether they could sell an equity stake sometimes in the second half of 2015, and they said yes, but the problem is that they were already engaged in discussions with 3 international players that had made offers to buy the fertilizer division of the company, 51%. So I requested that, look, give us a chance. And they said, where are you going to get funding? And I said, look, PIC has got now a Pan-African investment strategy. I'll approach them to put money into that and essentially partner me as, to be co-investors in this. They said, okay, no, that's fine. I went to the PIC, and PIC said to me, give us a proposal, which proposal was a document I submitted as an investment proposal as to how this transaction can essentially help them.
Can you just refer, you're on paragraph 61 of your statement now, is that correct?
Paragraph, I'm going through it quickly.
Yeah.
Yes. So, yeah, sorry. So I saw it as a platform that could be used for them to invest in other African countries. And essentially, they like the proposal, which I've attached as ETG1.
Now, before you proceed,
Yes.
I would like you to mention who was the executive assistant of Dr. Machila at the time when you presented this proposal.
So when I presented the proposal, I spoke to Dr. Machila initially, and then he said I must submit the proposal to his executive assistant, Mr. Wellington Masekesa. He called me later to essentially give me a signed letter of expression of interest, Wellington Masekesa, around 9 September 2015. And essentially that letter said, quote, the proposed transaction constitutes a meaningful participation in the agribusiness sector in line with our developmental investment mandate. Therefore, would like to express our non-binding interest in the proposed transaction. The PIC proposed participation in the transaction is subject to the successful outcome of a due diligence and approval by relevant committees within PIC. Copy of this non-binding expression of interest is attached as ATG2.
Who signed that letter? Who signed the letter?
Dr. Machila. Furthermore, such I scheduled calls with role players within ETG in Tanzania locally to talk about the proposed acquisitions. Some of their shareholders were Stanchart and Pembani Remgro.
You can then move to phase 2 of the due diligence process.
The transaction went through normal due diligence processes. Essentially, PMC1 said around September 2015 for approval to commence due diligence. Deloitte and Norton Rose were appointed as service providers. In October 2015, the PIC deal team introduced us to Tirisano Partners to act as transaction advisor that will work with the teams from TECO, Deloitte, Norton Rose, and PIC in order to coordinate the entire investment process on behalf of all the parties.
Did you know of this Terasano Partners?
No,
before?
not at all, Commissioner.
And can you just tell, it is in the paragraph, but just tell who they were represented by?
They were represented by a gentleman called Kindo Mugadza, Lauren Rollins, Lillian Oyando, and another gentleman called Taff. I forgot his surname. I cannot find his surname anywhere. 19 October, after the appointment of due diligence service providers, or during the same time, we received engagement letter from the PIC that was signed, and it's attached here to as ETG3.
Signed by?
Mr. Rajda, Roy Rajda. Material terms of it, PIC would acquire 50%, which is 15.5% of the deal, and then they'll provide cedar ranking secured facility to TECO for 15.5%. Total estimated deal value at that point was about $150 million. And then the engagement letter said that TECO shall be responsible for payment of any fees and expenses incurred in respect of the assessment and evaluation services rendered by any such independent consultant to PIC. If required and as agreed by parties, such fees shall be capitalized and funded out of the capital raised to fund the transaction. Such fees to be kept at 10 million rands, and should the fees exceed that amount specified in this paragraph, PIC shall be required to get written approval from TECO for the excess of the amount.
So, if I understand it correctly, if this deal was not successful, you would have been in for 10 million rand.
That's correct, Commissioner. It's worth mentioning that the original engagement letter from the PIC had proposed that the cost be kept at $5 billion, and those should be written by TECO alone. Even though the PIC was an equal shareholder in the transaction, we rejected the amount as too exorbitant and very unrealistic to fund, and then it was reduced to 10 million rands, which was also unreasonably high. We agreed to pay a participation fee of 1% on the funding that was given to us, and then we would be responsible for payment of any legal fees incurred by the PIC in connection with the execution of the transaction. In the term sheet also, they basically said ETG, TECO and PIC, ETG will grant TECO and PIC a 3-month exclusivity period starting from 23 October 2015 to enable PIC to perform a comprehensive due diligence, independent valuation of the company, and obtain management and board approvals of the transaction. ETG agrees not to conclude sale of the company to any other person until 23 January 2016.
So there was an exclusivity agreement.
That's correct.
Right, thank you.
The amended mandate letter was signed between us and ETG on 22 October and sent to the PIC. 5 December, we visited some of the operations in Malawi and Lilongwe together with ETG and PIC. PIC was represented on this mission by Mr. Rajda and Masekesa. 8 to 12 December 2015, we visited Dubai and Tanzania as part of due diligence review, where we met local ETG teams in those countries.
Were the PIC gentlemen also on these?
The deal team was represented in Tanzania, and Dubai was led by a gentleman called Mr. Mpumelo Maseko, with Igahe Mwatsi, and I think Buitumelo Leroke from legal, having attended that mission also. Hosted by the chairman of ETG Group in Tanzania, also met with the KPMG audit partner responsible for ETG, and visited operations based in the port of Dar es Salaam. In Dubai, we met the executive team of the fertilizer cluster as well as other professional advisors of the group.
So, to sum this up, there was an extensive investigation traveling to the different countries and looking at exactly what is going on there.
That's correct. And Tirisado and TECO also paid for their own costs for this mission.
And then you can go to paragraph 74.
10 December, initial drafts of the legal due diligence reports from Deloitte as well as Norton Full Rose. We reviewed, submitted to PIC after giving input in preparation for PMC2, which set during December 2015. The transaction was approved by PMC2 subject to some queries relating to management accounting information provided by ETG. These queries were referred to ETG and KPMG in Tanzania for review and updating. We received the updated information in January 2016. 19 January, we received a signed term sheet from the PIC, signed by Mr. Rajda, which entailed a acquisition of 49%, which we had negotiated from 30 to 49% of the issued share capital of the Inputs Holdings Company by the investors, being GPF and TECO. A copy of the said term sheet is attached here to as Annexure ETG4.
So just to make it clear, the investors being the GEPF and TECO.
That's correct.
Thank you.
On the same day, we met Sanchat in Sandton and briefed them on the feedback, on the progress, and they were happy. Based on the new terms, GEPF would acquire 39% of the existing equity at a pro rata valuation of the purchase price, and TECO receive funding from the PIC to acquire 10% of the equity on a pro rata valuation to the purchase price. Changing the shareholding structure from an equal shareholding between PIC and TECO to the current 80% in favor of PIC and 20% in favor of TECO. It's never discussed between the parties, but rather unilaterally imposed by the PIC. To this day,
Is the point that it was a unilateral decision, it was never discussed or agreed between the parties?
yeah, it's take it or leave it in most cases. So the revised structure defeats the whole purpose, because we thought of operational involvement in investing companies by entrepreneurs funded by PIC. You'd notice, commissioners, that if a Chinese company buys a company in South Africa, they send a delegation of employees from China to work in their investment. Germans, Americans do the same. So we thought that there's an opportunity for the PIC to invest and also second black professionals and other South African professionals to work in those companies as part of the preservation of the investment. But that was not the case. I think this was just a case of what you call passive investment. So we signed a term sheet and sent it to the PIC, and because we had taken the risk of underwriting the due diligence costs, PMC received updated information from Tanzania, from KPMG and ETG, and recommended the transaction to the next phase. But at that point, the PIC team stopped communicating with me, which was about late February 2016. Made several telephone calls to various members of the PIC deal team with no success. Was worried that as a guarantor of the due diligence costs as stipulated in the signed engagement letter, they could demand money from us if deal failed.
So is the position that you made these calls and they were just not answered or responded?
No, they don't respond. After numerous attempts, I met with the PIC deal team leader, Mpumelo Maseko, who told me that the deal has been approved and will be presented in the next IC meeting. And the condition from PMC was to remove TECO from the deal since we had no agricultural experience.
Was that the first time that you were informed of this?
Yeah, it was the first time. But he said that there was a story behind this. It was not really true. So I was informed that once the deal has been approved by the investment committee, they will run a process to bring another consortium or partner to take the 10% previously agreed to be allocated to us. I was very shocked to learn about this proposed approach. I was informed that the PIC meeting that took the decision to take TECO from the deal was chaired by the then CFO, Matsepo More, and then Dr. Machila was also in attendance. So asked the PIC how TECO could be moved from a deal it originated after guaranteeing all due diligence costs and of the investment process, and also being issued with a term sheet and engagement letter. I was told to talk to Dr. Den, or Executive Head of Development Investments, Mr. Roesh Rajda.
Who told you that?
Mpumelo Maseko, the deal team leader. 16 February, I was invited to a meeting by Tirisano Partners, transaction advisors who with the heading termed ETG checkout debrief. In that meeting, Kindo Mugaza informed me that the PIC decided to proceed with the transaction alone. Expressed my disappointment with the stance, and he informed me that I should personally speak to Dr. Machila, which I agreed to do. On 7 March 2016, I arranged an introductory meeting between the chairman of ETG, who was visiting from Tanzania, and Dr. Machila, with various people from ETG and PIC present. Meeting was very cordial, and discussions centered around corporate social investment programs in their countries of operations in the rest of the continent, as well as how these have impacted on ordinary poor rural subsistence farmers in those countries where ETG operates. We also discussed our observations on the positive impact ETG has on emerging farmers when we observed which we observed when we visited Malawi and Mozambique, and we're very excited to bring some of this experience to local black farmers in South Africa, to rural black farmers, sorry, Commissioner. It was also proposed that a $50 million Farmers Development Private Equity Fund be formed to help rural farmers grow and supply ETG through the value chain. Furthermore, ETG and PIC both agreed to contribute equally to this fund. To the best of my knowledge, this fund was never implemented after the transaction closure and remains outstanding.
During these discussions, did you take part in it?
With the chairman, yes, I did take part in it.
Did anybody tell you there that you're not welcome anymore?
Yes, I received an SMS 15 minutes before the meeting took place to say that the CEO wants to meet the chairman alone, and I shouldn't attend. And I said, are they going to meet the two of them only, or are they going to meet with their team? They said, no, I think you are the only one who's not invited here. So I found it odd, and I said to the guy, I'm already in the building, and I'm with the ETG team, so I will attend, which I did and gave my input.
Thank you. Can we then move to phase 3?
Pillar to Post is a phase from March 2016, 17, 18, 19. Essentially, that's what has been happening, trying to understand why this equity stake has not been allocated. Several meetings with Dr. Den, 4 at least, and as many meetings with ETG on the allocation of shares to TECO.
During these meetings with Dr. Machila, did he explain or tell you, advise you why come that you're not involved anymore or that you've been taken out?
First meeting took place, Commissioner, at their offices on 27 July. And in that meeting, he said to me that, look, when the transaction was presented to PMC2, TECO was not part of the submission. I'm on paragraph 87, Commissioner. TECO was not part of the submission. As a result, he did not want to interfere with the workings of the deal team. However, he advised me to engage with the deal team and request them to rectify the situation. Had various meetings with deal team and ETG, but this yielded no results. 88, that's basically after July 2016. I had another meeting, 15 December 2016, paragraph 89.
89.
Which was cancelled but rescheduled for 26 January 2017 to discuss the impasse in the allocation of shares. And then Dr. Den obviously committed to follow up and revert in due course. Nothing happened during this time, and basically spoke to every single one, ETG, PIC deal team, Masekesa, Rajda. They always said, talk to this one, talk to that one, and nothing happened. So I requested another meeting, which took place on 20 June 2017. And same thing, told him that, look, I've been sent from Pillar to Post. These guys are playing hide and seek. What's happening? He said, look, I'll try and resolve it. But it became apparent that at some point, these guys were trying to spread some misinformation about the actual deal originator. I don't know why. From my further discussions with the deal leader, Mpumelo Maseko, in an attempt to get to the bottom of this, he informed me that during the IC meeting, transaction was well received by the committee members, and they were generally complimentary to the structure, strategic fit to the rest of the continent, and thoroughness of the submission. When the IC approved the transaction with the condition that the executive committee will allocate a 10% to a strategic partner who will be identified within the 6 months of financial closure by the PIC executives. He further mentioned that one of the members of the IC inquired why the name of TEC was included in the ESG report as a strategic partner, yet the PIC team was requesting executive committee to allocate 10% to a strategic partner. That's paragraph 96. According to him, a response from the team that an old template was used on a different transaction with TECO, and the team forgot to remove TECO from that template.
So that is basically just a lie, is that correct?
That's correct. At that stage, I had never been involved in any transaction with PIC as a potential shareholder. Mpumelo said that he tried to clarify that TEC was involved in a transaction from inception, but the chairman of IC was not willing to entertain the discussion. that continued and then continued to sum up the deliberations with the condition of introducing another strategic partner within 6 months of financial closure.
Do you know who was the chair of that? Who was the chair of the?
Roshan Mora.
He was also the deputy chair of the board at the time, if I remember correctly.
That's correct.
Roshan Mora, Mr. Commissioner.
So, road to financial closure took place 2017 September because of the operations on the rest of the continent. The deal had to go to COMESA, Competition Commission. Once I learned, after looking at the website, that the deal has been approved, I basically met Wellington, who informed me that the deal has been approved. They were celebrating. Disbursements had taken place. Everybody was being congratulated on being a very good deal originator. 7 November 2017, I wrote an email to Dr. Den entitled ETG Matter.
This is paragraph 98 of your statement.
98. Wherein I indicated to him that I've been trying to contact him on his mobile phone to no avail. I informed him that the ETG matter remains unresolved despite several meetings with ETG and the PIC team. I stressed to him that he had requested the deal team and ETG to resolve the matter, but I've been made to run from pillar to post with no results. Consequently, I requested a meeting with him to find a solution to the impasse. A copy of the email is attached here to SETG 5. 1 December 2017, I received an email from his PA stating that she had scheduled a meeting between myself and Dr. Den on 15 December 2017 at 10. This meeting was subsequently cancelled, and when I followed up with the PA, she undertook to send me a revised schedule. She explained that Dr. Machila was involved in a series of meetings due to developments regarding the Steinhoff transaction. On 19 December 2017, I again followed up with the PA to ask for the next meeting. I received a meeting invite scheduling the meeting for 19 January 2018 between 2 and 3. Immediately accepted the invite. 19 January 2018.
Can I just pause there? I think you referred to in paragraph 100.
Yeah.
On 19 December 2017, I again followed up. But
yeah.
In the next sentence, you refer to January 2018. Is that 17 or 18?
That's 18. So.
A year later?
No. 19 January.
Sorry, I'm
19 January. So, on 19 January 2018, I met with Dr. Den at Menlyn, Maine, to discuss the allocation of shares once again. Told him that the PIC team have not allocated the shares as per the term sheet and resolved the matter as his previous request to do so. I appraised him that it appears that we are likely to be excluded considering the runaround being given. He once again reassured me that the PIC will do the right thing and allocate the shares to TECO, encouraged us to include a broad-based structure in the shareholding. Further advised that it was fair and reasonable for the PIC to also consider paying origination fees for the portion that we did not own because they are now the majority shareholder. He noted my request and said that I should rather raise the issue with ETG. He also suggested that I write a letter to the executive head of development investments, Mr. Roy Rajda, and copy him. On 23 January, I wrote the letter as requested by Dr. Machila. Firstly, congratulated the team on the successful conclusion of the acquisition of 49% of ETG equity stake. Furthermore, I pointed out that we had previously agreed during the implementation of the transaction that PIC would conclude transaction with on its own initially and allocate the 10% later. Given that this phase has been concluded and financial closure reached, on paragraph 103, TEC would like to move forward with the implementation of phase 2 of the transaction, being allocation of the 10% of the 49%. I also stated in the letter that I wanted to follow up on the implementation of the Agricultural Development Private Equity Fund. In conclusion, I requested him to advise when we can meet. I requested Mr. Rajda when we can meet with the relevant team members to implement the next phase of the transaction. Copy of this letter annexed here to SETG 6. 25 January 2018, I received an email from the PIC deal team requesting additional information for the purpose of implementing the 10% equity stake in the transaction. This email is attached here too and marked Annexure ETG7.
It would seem then at that stage you were again on board.
Yes, I think they were busy implementing. This requested information was provided. Following the submission of the information as requested, Dr. Machila's executive assistant arranged a meeting between TECO and Tirisano Partners, the PIC's transaction advisor, on 6 March 2018, 4 o'clock at Melrose Arch. In the meeting, Tirisano was represented by Kingdom Mugaza, informed me that the shareholding structure for the implementation of the transaction has changed. In the revised shareholding structure, TECO will now be allocated 1%, and then the rest of the 9% equity stake shall be allocated to a new Black Economic Empowerment Consortium, which Tirisano was currently working on formalizing. We informed them that the revised shareholding structure was not acceptable, and since it has not been, to TECO, since it was not in the shareholding structure which was reflected in the term sheet signed by all parties, by all transacting parties. Furthermore, we participated in due diligence evaluation of this transaction and incurred significant costs on the grounds that we're going to be funded by the PIC on the ETG transaction in order to acquire the shares. Meeting was very acrimonious, and I informed him that I did not agree with the revised shareholding approach taken in allocating the shareholding. Furthermore, I advised him that I was agreeable to setting up a broad-based structure together with PIC that included women in the majority, which may include some executives and staff members at ETG, and therefore I did not understand the rationale for revising the structure once again. As a result of my objection to the revised shareholding allocation for the allocation of 1% to TECO proposed by Kingdom Mugaza, allocation process started by the PIC was again halted. We were again further marginalized, and we did not receive any transaction updates or communication in relation to the transaction from there on. We wrote several emails to the PIC team but received no replies. Copies of these emails are available if needed. On 6 July 2018, I secured another meeting with Dr. Machila, and he informed me that he was surprised that the PIC deal team had not implemented the transaction as per the term sheet. He alluded to me that there were some complications in the transaction since certain external parties supported by people internally wanted ETG shares to be allocated to them. Once again, he undertook to follow up on the matter. However, at that time, he was already in the process of defending himself against the allegations leveled against him by James Noko. I did not hear anything further from Dr. Machila, but continued to write to the PIC team to request finalization of the matter, but no responses came forth.
Did they not even respond to your letters?
Not acknowledgement, nothing, Commissioner. So I was worried that they may be talking to other parties with a view of implementing this phase of the transaction to our exclusion. Having sent emails on 12, 25, July 2018, 13 August with no replies or acknowledgement, we received a reply to our email dated 9 October 2018 from Pumelo Maseko. He responded and repudiated our claim for the shares for the first time formally. Copy of this email is attached here to as Annexure ETG8.
Did he provide any reasons for this?
The reason was that we did not have any agricultural experience in the value chain. I wrote and said to him that does it mean that everybody who gets funded by the PIC has got sector experience? And I'm on page 110, and he said I must discuss that with his superiors. I can skip 111. On 112, I said to him that, we pointed out in the due diligence review that the weaknesses, if any, in this transaction revolved around corporate governance, risk management, financial reporting, and those are the areas that we are very competent in, rather than the lack of expertise in the fertilizer value chain as alluded by him. I further inquired from him whether all parties funded by the PIC possess sector experience. Again, I reached out to the head of development investment at the PIC, Dr. Roy Rajda, who referred me to Dr. Machila. A meeting was set up with Dr. Machila on 17 December 2018, but it never took place. On 23 January 2019, I wrote again to the head of development investments at the PIC, referring him to my previous letter of January 2018 and other discussions held with the PIC regarding the allocations of equity stake. I reminded him that TEC originated the deal and approached PIC for funding as far back as 2015. We're involved in all stages of the due diligence and valuation and presentations. Furthermore, I indicated to him that it was agreed between TEC and PIC that the shareholding will be allocated after Competition Commission approval. The agreed timeline was supposed to happen within 6 months of financial closure, which happened in November 2017. Notwithstanding that, we're still waiting for the matter to be finalized. I'm on paragraph 114. So this letter I've attached here to Annexure ETG9. On the same day, Mr. Rajda responded to my letter stating that Bumelo Maseko will set up a meeting with us. Several meetings were set up and cancelled at short notice, and no meetings ever took place, and this matter remains outstanding. Last scheduled meeting between us and the PIC took place on 3 April, but this was also cancelled at short notice and never rescheduled. I spoke to Mr. Rajda telephonically during early May 2019, and he told me that the PIC was in the process of disposing its stake in ATG. Asked him when the allocation of shares to us will take place, and he told me that he was not sure, but he would speak to ETG and revert. On 8 May, election day, I met the ETG team, and then they informed me that PIC was approached by one of the original suitors of ETG, who was in the middle of a due diligence review in connection with the proposed disposal of PIC's stake in ETG, and a transaction was imminent. In conclusion, I humbly request the Commission of Inquiry to deal with the powers of the PIC, deal team, and the executive team to the extent that those teams can decide who should be a promoter or originator of a transaction that has already been submitted to the PIC by a sponsor. It's concerning that the PIC can express interest in a transaction, go as far as conducting due diligence, FICA processes, getting necessary internal approvals, and at a later stage, on their own discretion, decide to remove a sponsor and include their preferred sponsor. If they do not believe that a sponsor has experience in a particular sector, but a transaction fits in with their strategy, should rather advise the sponsor to beef up or develop skills in those areas rather than discriminate and disempower them by removing them completely at the end of a transaction, in circumstances where the sponsor had invested significantly in a transaction. There do not appear to be sufficient checks and balances or guidelines on the PIC processes regarding their discretion to choose who gets involved in deals and who is not. This opens the door for favoritism and gatekeeping. I believe there should be a clear policy guideline in relation to the subject matter rather than for it to be left at management discretion as currently is practiced at the PIC. I trust this submission will be of assistance to the Commission. The evidence leader is free to contact us should the Commission require further information or clarity in this regard. I thank the Commission for giving us the opportunity to clarify some of the issues raised in the James Noku email and to also share our experiences at the PIC.
Thank you. Mr. Commissioner, that concludes the evidence of Mr. Kota.
I mean, we've gone through it very quickly and we will go through it more carefully, so thank you very much for that. But do you know who, in the end, substituted for you in that either 9% or as the sponsor?
That has not been concluded because they realized that because we refused to go away, if they went ahead and allocated to somebody, that deal was going to be questioned, and so they decided to just hold on and do nothing about it.
So that 10% is still missing from this potential sale back of somebody else to buy the PIC shares for ETG? Or are they going to actually sell the whole lot?
They're going to sell the whole lot.
The whole lot?
Including the 10%, yes.
Including the 10%?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, 2 questions here. The 1% fee on the first transaction, on the current bid, were you planning to share it with RMB, or sort of it was TECO's fee?
So the total fees on Karan would amount to about 80 million rands, including VAT. The time-based fees, being Deloitte and Livedecker, amount to maybe just around 15 million rands, including VAT. And then RMB and TECO would share the balance as a success fee, which is, I think, just under 1% combined for the two of them.
Okay, so meaning the plan is to share the 30 million rands?
Yeah, with RMB.
Which is left from the 80 million rands?
No, there's 60 left from...
60 left from the 20, oh,
yes.
From the 80. So
yes.
It's sort of 80 minus the 20 for the tax and the other stuff, and then 60 is left, isn't it?
That's correct, yeah.
Which is shared halfway, I
Yes.
would guess.
Yes.
Okay. On the second point, the 10%, I mean, I find this very staggering, that you have spent, 2 years, 3 years in this thing?
It's
4 years.
3.5 years.
Yes. And do you have any idea why they are doing this to you?
I don't know, but I think it could be that they wanted to allocate, and it's my opinion, those shares to somebody who's more favorably disposed to them. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure.
What's the value of that 10% in rand terms?
The total investment, I speak under correction, was about $190 million. 10% is $19 million, roundabout.
That's quite a lot. I mean, that's, yeah. Do you?
It's a.
Yeah, continue.
Sorry, Commissioner, but it's a loan. So obviously the performance depends on how you service interest and things like that. So take the loan plus interest. On disposal, basically, either there will be profit or a loss or a slight loss, depending on the price negotiated.
And on that 10%, I mean, was there something written down maybe about the agreement, about this?
Yeah, we went through the full process, full investment process. We submitted a proposal, we were given a letter of expression of interest. We then were given a term sheet, a engagement letter, where we guaranteed the due diligence costs, and then from there we signed a term sheet with the PIC. So it went through the whole formal process.
Legal action? I mean, why couldn't you take legal action?
I'll answer that maybe using an analogy. When you sell electricity meters, you don't sue ESCOM.
It's the normal thing that people are scared of the PIC, so they cannot take action against the PIC.
That's correct.
Yeah, all right. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Yeah, but it's quite a difficult issue. Yeah, this one is staggering.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mutau. I certainly am not sure whether we are in a position to deal with, your request, as it were, or whether this really is a civil matter where you should approach the courts. But I am making no judgment on it. It's just talking from the top of my head at the moment. But we will look at your matter, and if we don't deal with it in the way that you wish we could, don't hold that against us, but we'll have a look at it. Thank you so much for your time. It's quite a comprehensive presentation that you have made before us, and we are really grateful for it. All right.
Thank you, Commissioner.
If it were to happen that we need some more clarity on certain issues, I hope you will make yourself available. In fact, I think you do say that at the end of your statement.
That's correct. I'm always available, Commissioner.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. That concludes the business for the day.
We'll then adjourn until tomorrow morning at 10.